Good evening from Apple Joe Farms. It is supper time here in our little girl barn. And I have a question that someone asked that I want to address. It may be a question that you've had. So, in the dairy goat world, sometimes amongst some of the usually larger breeders, they have other goat friends with wonderful goats, just like they have, and genetics, and that they really love. And so instead of buying another doe or another buck, they will go ahead and land their buck for breeding purposes to another farm for a certain period of time. So I've been asked about this, and I want to tell you my experience and see what you all think. So there comes the question, if you're the one who has the buck, that you both agree you want to have bred to your does, do you take the does to the buck and let them breed and then bring them home? Or do you do it the other way around? Or does it even make a difference? Very good questions. So I've done quite a bit of research, and then I have some personal experience as well. So I sold, over the years, I've sold in two different cases, I've sold pregnant does, and of course they had to be trailered and taken to their new home. Now, the first time I had no idea how stressful that could be, and that there could even be a chance of the mother aborting while, as you trailer her. After doing that she could actually abort and lose her babies. And so this person wanted to do that. She bought a beautiful doe from me, and she was in her early couple of months of being pregnant. They trailered her and took her home, and the next day she aborted. Very, very sad. Okay. And so years later, I was approached by someone to buy another doe, and they wanted her to be bred, and then they wanted to take her home. And so I said, well, I'm very hesitant about doing that, because another time when I did it, it ended up that she miscarried. She aborted her babies. And I said, I just really don't want to do that again. And they finally convinced me, oh, that was just an odd off thing. I'm sure that it's going to be fine. It won't happen. Well, guess what? We did that, and that doe had a horrible early delivery. Actually, she couldn't deliver, and she ended up dying, and so did all the babies. So, is it just coincidental? I don't think so. But I've done a lot of research, and the research says it is not wise to load up your does and take them to someone else's farm to have them bred by a special buck, because it is very stressful. They can abort. Sometimes they won't settle, because you're going to have to load them back up in whatever the appointed time is, whether it's 2 weeks or a month or 2 months. You're going to have to load them back up and bring them home. It is very stressful. So personally, this is something that I will never do, no matter how much I want my does bred by a champion buck or a great genetic line, a buck at someone else's home. I will never load my girls up and put them through that. And I will say on that note that many do just end up bringing the buck to someone's farm that wants them bred and leave them there for an appointed time, a month, 2 months, 3 months. And then the buck is loaded up and he's taken home, and there's none of that danger. There's none of that trauma that happens. And so I would just recommend that if you're doing this, because I've seen this go well and I've seen it go wrong. Someone who did not have just a simple written contract about what the expectations were of, doing this process of lending a buck to someone. And then I've seen it go very right, where they sit down, they both talk, they have an agreement. Okay, we're not going to have an exchange of any money, but what we are going to do is, after my buck breeds your herd, I'm going to get from this such and such a doe, or whatever you decide, whether it's one kid, decide on, a doeling or a buckling or one of each, or whatever the two of you decide, but get it in writing, because things can go very, very wrong after a month, 2 months, 3 months, and you go to pick up your buck, and maybe expectations became something different. I have seen wonderful friendships end in total disaster because folks just took it for granted that everybody understood what was involved. So folks, take your time with it. It's a wonderful idea. In fact, I hope that I have that privilege someday of finding someone who I can trust and who will say, hey, I have got this great buck, and would you like, I love your does, specifically, I love this doe and this doe of yours. Would you be interested in me bringing my buck and leaving him for a month and a half, and let him breed whoever, of your does? And I'm excited about the idea of that. Now, it takes a very good friend. And oftentimes people will say, well, I just can't imagine taking my buck and leaving him somewhere. Well, obviously, folks, if you can't imagine doing that, this is someone who you do not want to be doing this with. If you do not have that complete trust and knowledge of what it's going to be like at that farm for your buck, you don't want to be involved in doing this. But remember that if you're expecting that they load up their does and bring them to your farm to be bred, that this is putting them, their future babies, if they do get pregnant, it's putting them at risk. The outcome may be good, but there's a good chance that some of it is not going to be good. So just talk it over, write up a little contract, decide if you're going to have an exchange of payment, or perhaps payment is going to come in the way of an agreed upon kid or 2 kids, and what sex they'll be and from what doe they'll be. Get all of that figured out right up front, and it'll all go smoothly. So happy breeding. Take care, and thank you so much for joining and watching my video. Please like and subscribe. It's free, and it helps us to get the word out to others and help them understand how that they can build their herd and build it with quality. Thank you.